Hey guys, Dimitri here from Criminally Prolific. Thank you for being a blog subscriber to my blog, and thank you for tuning in to this 3-part mini course on how to build relationships with influencers and press. I'm going to dig into why this course is probably the most important thing to learn and apply, but I just want to tell you that you're going to get 3 parts to this course, right? 3 videos. Each video is going to have a homework assignment and a real action plan at the end of how to apply this stuff. I want you guys to take 10-20 minutes right after you watch this video to apply the stuff that you learned in this video and do the homework assignment. And we're going to do the same for lesson 2 and lesson 3. It's free, and I want you guys to apply this stuff, okay? It's really important that you do. So let's jump into it. Part 1 of 3. This is how to reach out to influencers and journalists and press. How do you reach out to them? How do you compose a pitch? How do you start up a conversation? Before we get into the nitty-gritty, I want to tell you a personal note, and that is I grew up in the USSR, and it was a very tough time, a very tough time. I don't know how much you know about Soviet Union, but this was a time when the country realized that central planned economy actually doesn't work really well, and as a result, there's terrible inflation. There's tons of people, there's a run on the banks, there's people that are trying to take their, we had money in our couch that we took out to go shopping with. And the stores were absolutely mobbed, just like this, and there was pretty much nothing in the stores. The actual stores were empty. You see, like there's just nothing in the stores. But if you knew somebody, you could go into the basement and all of a sudden there would be tons of canned goods that you can score. It was insane. It was just a crazy time that I had to live through. Probably the toughest time personally, as growing up as a kid and had to help out with my sister and you know, food shortages, not a lot of choices in terms of what you can do, and people just really caressing their misery, right? Because it was a tough time. It was a tough time through the collapse. We were there, and tons of anti-Semitism as well. My family was very paranoid that a lot of them have been in jail for just, you know, studying Hebrew or studying Talmud, and my dad installed a huge door, a bulletproof door that would protect us if, you know, anybody came to our house. It was crazy. It was just a crazy time, and my family wanted to immigrate for multiple reasons. And when the Soviet Union fell apart, we could go to Israel or America, and so we decided to go after both of them. And for a while, we thought we were going to go to Israel, but the opportunity to immigrate to the U.S. came through. And we finally arrived fresh off the boat in 1993. President Clinton was elected, and I started eating right away and gaining tons of weight. I was this skinny kid that turned into this behemoth of a dude. And broken family for me. Half my family stayed in Russia. My dad didn't want to come, and his whole family said, listen, we're not going to a new country, learning a new culture and language. And so it was just me and my mom, and I had to raise my sister and go to school and adapt to this culture. And there's tons of stuff that I went through personally that I'm not going to bore you through. But it was a really tough time, and I dreamed that one day I'd have the American dream, right? I'll be this rich businessman. I would not have to, you know, worry about going to work all the time, and I wanted to figure out how to do this. And I got involved in computers early on, way before this crazy person of New Hampshire. You're looking at my ID for University of New Hampshire, and you know, I was this huge dude back in the day, right? Because I ate and ate and ate, and I was overweight. I became a little more depressed, and I was constantly on search for this dream, like how can I use computers to figure out how to, you know, live my life where I don't have to answer to anybody. I don't have a boss, right? And the best I could do is get this computer science degree. By the time I came out of college, I got a job at BAE Systems, huge company, 84,000 people. I moved myself up. I mean, I was a software engineer since I was 13, and I moved myself up after my college degree. I became a manager, and you know, I had a decent job. I got great, you know, great pay. I had everything I wanted, but I was still unsatisfied. I was depressed. I was overweight. I was really just grinding down, and I couldn't take it anymore. And fast forward to now. I'm a regular contributor to Entrepreneur magazine. I'm a regular contributor to TechCrunch. I write for The Next Web. I also write for Forbes. I also write for Huffington Post, Mashable, New York Times. I write for tons of publications. I published over 1,300 articles. I've met people like Matt Mullenweg. I actually build relationships. Matt Mullenweg, the founder of WordPress. I have a really good relationships with these people. Tim Ferriss, 4-Hour Work Week. You guys probably heard of him. There's Gary Vaynerchuk. I've built relationships with some of the biggest minds in the entrepreneurship world. Me, a nobody, that guy that came over from Russia. I did this, right? I did this on my own without the help of PR firms, or anybody else. Noah Kagan, Brian Dean. Brian Dean, these are testimonials for working with them and knowing them and helping them out. I've built these relationships all on my own. And I got my business acquired by Google. This was a few years ago. I wrote this case study. You guys can check it out on the next web. I built this blog to be over $100,000 in revenue a year. And I now run a business that has over 2,000 customers. This business called Just Reach Out, a software business. We have over 2,000 customers where startups learn how to pitch journalists and influencers on their own. They use this software to do so. And so over 2,000 paying customers since November 2015, right? Amazing testimonials, and I couldn't be happier. This is everything I've dreamed of. I got 2 startups acquired. There was a second one that I won't talk about. Completely changed my career from that depressed, overweight dude that was working at BAE Systems to now. Contributor all over write for most media publications, published over 1,300 articles, worked over 100 startups, and currently have over 2,000 customers in my own business, my own software business, where I don't have to answer to anybody else. And all thanks to building relationships with influencers. This is the most important part to anything I've done in my life. Since I landed here and since I was that depressed guy at BAE Systems, I built relationships with these influencers. And I want to teach you how to do the same. So let's jump into it. Part 1, how to reach out to journalists and influencers and build those relationships. Who's an influencer? It could be a journalist, but counter to popular belief, this could be a founder. It could be an investor. It could be a celebrity, or it could be a blogger, right? And it doesn't have to be a journalist. You don't have to build relationships with press. You can build relationships with an investor, and you can get your brand seen. Here's an example. Thorin from Lifehacker. He writes for Lifehacker, but he also has his own business. I built a relationship with him. Guy Kawasaki. He was, chief evangelist at Apple. He's also a VC. I built a relationship with him. Different people, right? A blogger on Lifehacker versus somebody who's Guy Kawasaki. They can help you different ways. Fred from Union Square Ventures. Fred Wilson is a very well-known figure in the VC world. He's also a great blogger. Very different from Christina, who I have a great relationship with, who writes for Mashable constantly, right? Here's Jessica Livingston from Y Combinator. Build a relationship with her, over a speaking gig. These are different people. Andrea Huspeni does content and entrepreneur. She's my editor at Entrepreneur Magazine. Very different relationship from this person. Andrea Mooney, who is this? You might be looking at this random person. She actually heads content for all of Hertz publications. So if you want to be featured on San Francisco Chronicle on the home page, she controls that versus San Antonio News, versus every single Hertz publications. There's tons of them, right? And building a relationship with her is very different from building a relationship with any one of those people that I mentioned. Brian Clark, copy blogger, right? Copy blogger, great opportunity for you to guest post possibly, right? Building a relationship with him will be completely different from building a relationship from Fred Wilson of Union Square Ventures. And each one of these people can help you differently, right? I built a relationship with all these people. Neil Patel, you guys know who he is, Quick Sprout and beyond, Noah Kagan, Paul Graham of Y Combinator, Ashton Kutcher. I built a relationship with Ashton Kutcher, and you might think, he's a celebrity. Why would you have a relationship with him? Well, he's actually an investor and an avid advisor in a lot of startups. And I can show you how I did this. In this course, I'm going to show you how to reach out to these folks. Each influencer is a person, and that's what I want you guys to remember. Remember this. And anytime you compose an email or a message to them, just remember, you need personalized conversation starter to get the conversation rolling. It's never a good idea to send the same email to multiple people when you're doing this type of work. You're building a relationship. You're going to be dating them, more or less. So I want you guys to build a relationship with these people in a personalized manner. It doesn't matter who they are. All it matters is a personalized conversation starter, okay? What do I mean by that? What do I mean by a personalized conversation starter? Let's look at an example here. Here is an email that I sent to Fred Wilson. This guy's crazy busy. He's an extremely popular guy. The Union Square Ventures in New York City is extremely popular and successful VC firm. Now, if I were like everybody else, I would pitch him on my startup. Hey, I run Just Reach Out, and we are doing this, and we'd love for you to invest in us. Here's our traction. I don't want to be like everybody else. I want to pique his curiosity, and I want to start an engaging conversation with him. So I took an article that he wrote, and I commented on it. His article was about, hey, if you have a good product, you don't need marketing. And I challenged that, and I said, hey, I wrote this long email to him, and he responded. I asked him a question, and he responded. He said, if you have a paid offering, you have to do marketing. So I'm like, all right, well, we're talking about something that's very dear to both of our hearts, right? This was the article that he wrote. Here's another example of me striking up a conversation with somebody. I know somebody who's writing about Hue APIs, and I saw somebody else who created a little hack from a Hue API. And so I said, hey, since you write about this stuff, I found something that is really, 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 really interesting in this space. Somebody hacked the API to change colors of light bulbs. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. And since you've covered it, you might find it pretty neat as well. Now, I have no relationship to anybody in this little hack. I found it, and I did some research. I became an assistant to this journalist, and I tipped him off, and he published it. He's like, this is awesome. I love this hack. I'll write an article for it. Now, I get nothing out of it because it's not my stuff that's being promoted. It's somebody else's hack. But I'm starting a meaningful conversation with this person who writes for TechCrunch, right? Ashton Kutcher, you guys were probably wondering the whole time, like, he's Ashton Kutcher. Like, how do we build a relationship with Ashton Kutcher? This was the exact email I sent to Ashton Kutcher, knowing that I lived in Silicon Valley for 6 years, and knowing that he respects a lot of these people who spoke at my soapbox. Now, it took me years and years and years to get all these people to speak, but my plan was not to shoot him an email and strike up a conversation. My plan was to actually provide value and impress him that I've had all these people and I've interviewed them. So I tried as hard as I could, to get folks like Tim Ferriss, CTO of Pandora and founder of Eventbrite, and I used this same methodology of striking up a conversation on a topic that's very dear to their heart, to engage them and ask them to speak at my little soapbox, right? And once I had all of them, I knew that Ashton respects all of them, and I also knew that Ashton did a number of entrepreneurship talks at that point, so he would respond. And so, I sent an email like this, and I got a response from Mr. K, or Ashton. His thanks for reaching out. He's a big fan of those guys. I knew that already. He said, talk to Kelly Donnelly. She handles my calendar. And, I started chatting with her about getting Ashton to speak at my soapbox. Anyone can do this. No PR firms necessary. I mean, you guys can do this just like me. Remember, I came over here. I was this Russian guy. I didn't even know English, right? And here I am. I've accomplished all this stuff. I've taught this to myself, Here's a great example of somebody responding to Walt Mossberg, who's pretty much a mecca in the tech world, right? My friend Mrinal is responding to him on the topic that's very dear to his heart, right? And he's saying, I agree with you, but I'm curious. Apple would provide an integrated hardware, software, and a wireless service, right? He's agreeing with him, but he's also striking up a conversation on the topic of smartphones. This leads to an article written about Mrinal's startup. Now, all that time, that's relationship building. That's part 2 of the speaker series. We'll talk about actually building that relationship. At this point, we're just trying to figure out how can you reach out to somebody and provide value, provide meaning. Here's a blatant pitch. This is what I see all the time, that I tell people, listen, this is not the best thing to do, but this guy is Rami. He's from Furniture Subscription. He lives here in Brooklyn. He's a dear friend of mine. And he sent an email just like this to Serena where he said, listen, I see that you write about local startups here in Brooklyn, New York. This is your specialty and you love this stuff. We are pretty much a 3-person startup here, and we're doing something really cool. We rent out furniture that's unused on people's houses to other people who need it. And it might be a cool story for you. I don't know anything else I can say here, right? So he really was struggling to figure out the best approach to reaching out to her, but he was just very candid. He said, listen, I know this much about you, that you love Brooklyn and you love Brooklyn-based startups, and I want to connect with you on that topic. He's pitching himself up front, which I don't like to see very well. She publishes this small little article on a blog called DNA Info here in New York City, which is somewhat interesting. It's an interesting blog and it's got some following. It just so happened that the folks from Fox were checking out that blog at that time, and they saw that story. And Rami's story got featured on Fox. And that Fox story ended up being sort of syndicated in all these different stations, and amazing PR. I mean, amazing PR, right? What the point of this is, he didn't provide as much value, but provided enough value for her because she, at that time, was looking for Brooklyn-based startup as a story, and he needed to pitch her on that specific need she had. Again, anybody can do this. You can do this yourself. Here are the actual 4 strategies you should use right now to reach out and build those relationships, right? We're worried about reaching out primarily here, right? So let's jump into it. Become a source for an article. This is your number 1 thing that you should think about. There are tons of reporters and journalists and influencers and bloggers and people like Fred Wilson who are writing articles, and they need a source for it. They need an expert. They need a quote from an expert. And you are an expert in your field. You know your stuff. So we do this through Just Reach Out. There's a free trial. There's also a free version of this thing. You type in something like entrepreneur, and you see actual requests from journalists which look just like this, where a journalist is saying, listen, I need somebody to interview in my article about X, about struggles entrepreneurs go through, or something like that. You can respond to this. This is low-hanging fruit. It costs nothing. It'll take you 2 minutes to set this up, and you can respond to this email. This person needs somebody today, right now, and you're just letting it go, right? So this is the first thing that you can do in terms of reaching out. You don't have to think about how you can provide value to them too hard. You're already providing value by answering to this query. So this is something you must do. This is the easiest thing that you can do right now. And I told you, I want you to act on this stuff immediately after this lecture. So please do this. The second strategy is Quora or Reddit commenting. And this has been goldmine for me. I've met so many people through these 2 websites that it's been incredible. So how does this work? And Just Reach Out, or you can go on your own. You can search Quora and Reddit on your own. We search all those sites for you in Just Reach Out. But you type in a term like SEO, and you find actual questions on Quora that people are asking about it. This could be, how do you make film, or anything in your area of expertise. You can type in there, and you'll find questions people are asking. Answer those questions, and engage with the people who are also answering them. This is one way to start building relationships with like-minded people. These might not be the biggest influencers in your space, but other influencers answer these questions. And those people might want to see what you wrote. And that's a great way to start a conversation that's meaningful and provides value to those people. Secondly, you can actually ask influencers and pull them in on those discussions. So what I typically do is I not only answer the question on Quora, but I go and ask an influencer in the space. For me, it's SEO. I know a lot about SEO. So I'll ask somebody who's a big name in SEO to say, hey, listen, I answered the question, but I don't think I did it justice. I haven't been doing SEO for 20 years. You've been doing SEO for 20 years. I'd love for you to answer this. And believe it or not, people will do that because they're a big mind in their field, and they don't mind sharing some knowledge with people who are really asking for it. And that's one way to start a conversation. Thank you for answering that question. You answered it much better than I did. I think people are really happy with it. Would love to keep the conversation going. And then you start that conversation. This is one way to kind of jump in there, right? Here's a reporter who wrote, where will SEO go this year? So I look up who this person is, and I look up the same types of questions on Quora Reddit. I start participating in discussion, and then I want to build a relationship with this guy because he writes for this blog, Search Engine Land, and I want a relationship with him. Well, instead of pitching him what I do, I say simply, hey, you wrote about this topic. There's a question on Quora about it. I just answered it, and I want you to participate in it as well. I think you know better than me because you wrote this article. And sure, the person might provide some comments, they might even participate in it, but that's one way you start that email conversation, if you know what I mean. Again, low-hanging fruit, I want you to act on this stuff right now. I want you to look up, questions and articles being written and see who you can pull into a question thread. Provide data or insights about, number 3, provide data or insights about what you do. This is what got the startup acquired that I was working at by Google. Here's an email that I would send a journalist or influencer. I know you write about iOS 6 and iOS 7. This was back in the day when iOS 7 was coming out. I have a poll here. I polled people, and I saw that people actually prefer the older one. It's kind of crazy, right? And then would love for you to hear your feedback on this stuff, right? And this is a hot topic. This is when iOS 7 still hasn't come out yet. People are talking a lot about it. And this article comes out, and he takes the results from this poll, and he uses those results in his article. He uses the data that I provided. Now, it took me, probably $20 to get 10,000 participants to participate in my poll and come out. And it was a free software that I used to create this poll. But this person really love they write for TechCrunch, and they love the data that I gave them, right? It's one way you can start providing insights and information to these people. There's another topic about juicy data about racial bias and dating preferences, right? We did this study, and it revealed that black women received the lowest number of messages, Asian black women received lower. There's some study that we did, right? So it's another company that's doing a study, and they came out with some crazy study, right? Some kind of data that challenges somebody. The challenges, and it's surprising, right? It engages people. They're like, what? No, this is ridiculous. This is absolutely preposterous. And I want a reaction. I want a response from these people I'm reaching out to. And they don't have to be journalists, remember. They can be bloggers. They can be influencers. They can be investors or celebrities. I just want a topic that they care a lot about, and I want to provide them data about it, right? Data is money, in the publication and media and anywhere else people are writing about. It's what people want. And articles like this come out of pitches that you just saw, that racial bias article, boom, dailydot.com, right? Here's an article with data that I provided them. I worked hard to get that data, but it's very relevant to what that journalist covers. So the last one, and we're coming to an end here, part 1 of how to reach out to journalists and influencers. Interview someone. This is dead simple, very simple. I wrote, back when Facebook was IPOing, I asked a bunch of people in my space, Rand Fishkin, big guy, and he's founder of Moz, right? I simply asked, what do you think Facebook stock, if you could, would you buy it right now? If you could, Facebook was not available. This was early days, and would you buy it right now? And people had very strong opinions about it. I think everybody did. And all I did is send an email out to them, and then I would get them to answer this note for me. And once I got the answers, I put them in a blog post, and I got the guy who created Gmail right there. Their chief, one of the main open web advocates at Google, and Robert Scoble. I got these big guys to give me a quote. Now, what happens after? Well, they might promote this little blog post I put up on my blog. They might not. I have an email thread with them. I have something of value that I provided to them, possibly, right? Because I covered them, I included them in my piece, and I promoted that piece. And so I have something that I can go back to and keep developing that relationship. And that's something we're going to jump in session 2, part 2. But this is about reaching out to journalists and influencers and striking up that conversation. So quick review before I let you guys go. Who is an influencer? It could be anybody. It could be Christina Warren, who blogs for Mashable, or it could be Ashton Kutcher, or it could be Paul Graham of Y Combinator. They're all influencers, and they can help you different ways. Each one has a personalized approach, needs a personalized conversation starter, right? Remember that, personalized conversation starter. I've emphasized that many times in this lesson. And how do you build a relationship with them? How do you reach out, like actual reaching out? Well, remember, help a reporter. We started with that. Those queries from journalists, influencers, bloggers, they're sitting there every day, thousands of them. You put in different keywords into just reach out, or you go and sign up on helpareporter.com, or you can search different PR tags on Twitter. We kind of aggregate all that up. And read these queries, answer them, respond even if they're old. Doesn't matter if it's an old one and it already expired. This person might be writing about this topic again soon. You don't know. Respond to all of them, and make sure you follow up. Quora, Reddit, answer those questions. How long does it take to find a questioner that you can answer on Quora? Well, it might take you 10 minutes, or it might be taking you 2 minutes. It doesn't matter, because all you do is you answer that question. You answer that question, and you find an influencer or somebody else, and you ask them about it. And find another article on this topic, and ask them to participate. And you start striking up conversation. You start pulling them in on something that's common between you and them, a common interest. Remember, in my case, it was this guy from Search Engine Land. I pulled him into the Quora discussion. Provide data and insights. That's number 3. Data and insights, you remember that poll that I pitched to TechCrunch. I took some time to create a poll on a topic that was very highly relevant at the time in terms of breaking news. I would go on TechMeme, I would go on Mashable, on TechCrunch, New York Times. I really see what is trending in technology right now. What is everybody talking about? And I would create a poll about it, and I would provide data that I've learned from it. I'd promote that poll. I'd pay a little money to promote it, and I would give the data to press. And articles like this would arise with my name on it, right? And the last and final one, interview someone. Interview someone who is of stature, who's a big name in this field, about a topic that is, again, very on top of people's minds right now, right? And put up a blog post, promote it a little bit, and strike up a conversation by asking them to give you a quote for your article. And they might answer, they might not, but this will be one way to strike up a conversation with them. Those are the four ways on how to strike up a conversation with an influencer or a reporter or journalist. Next up, remember these 4 things. I want you to apply them. I want you to apply them right now. I'm going to give you a homework assignment that I want you to execute, and I want you to look out for email number 2. So give one of these a try. Right? You just learned 4 of them. I want you to take a long, hard look at these. Become a source for article, Quora or Reddit, provide data and insights, and interview someone. And I want you to apply one of them. Give one of these a try, right? It shouldn't take you that long. I tell you, some of these might take you a few minutes right now. But don't procrastinate. Don't go and go have food or hang out. I want you to apply this right now and comment. Comment down below on which one you picked and what topic you're going after. All right, we'll respond. I'll respond, and I just want to see you guys participate in this thing, right? Stay tuned for part 2, how to turn an email thread into an actual relationship. So now, after you've got this thing down, you've got an email thread going, what do you do now? How do you actually ask them how to, you pitch them on whatever you want, or how do you ask them for something? How do you develop a real relationship with that person who is a stranger, who is a really big person of stature in the space? So look out for part 2 or 3, and thank you.